The dry desert wind howled across the barren landscape as Isaac Xavier squinted against the setting sun, his weathered face bearing testament to years spent under the harsh frontier elements. It was 1874, and the Arizona Territory had been his home for the past 5 years of hard riding, cattle driving, and a solitude that had begun to weigh heavily on his soul. The path ahead stretched endlessly before him, dust devils dancing in the distance, when something unusual caught his eye: a crumpled form lying motionless beside the trail. Isaac pulled on the reins of his chestnut stallion, Rusty, bringing him to a stop. "Whoa there, boy," he murmured, swinging down from the saddle with practiced ease. His spurs jingled as his boots hit the ground, hand instinctively resting on the revolver at his hip as he approached. Caution was second nature in these parts. As he drew nearer, his pace quickened. It was a woman young, her tattered blue dress caked with dirt, a small carpetbag lying nearby. Her dark hair spilled across her face, and the rise and fall of her chest was barely perceptible. Relief washed over him. She was alive, at least. Kneeling beside her, Isaac gently brushed the hair from her face. She couldn't be more than 25, her skin pale but for the angry red burn across her cheeks and forehead clear signs of sun exposure. Without water or shelter, she wouldn't last much longer. As if sensing his presence, her eyelids fluttered, revealing eyes the color of warm honey. Her cracked lips parted, but no sound emerged. "Don't try to speak," Isaac said, his deep voice softened with concern. He slid one arm beneath her shoulders, the other under her knees, and lifted her as carefully as if she were made of porcelain. "I've got you," he reassured her as her head lolled against his chest. Her eyes found his for a brief moment before closing again, exhaustion claiming her once more. Isaac carried her to his horse, maneuvering her gently onto the saddle before retrieving her carpetbag. He mounted behind her, one strong arm securing her against him as he turned Rusty toward his homestead, 5 miles to the west. "Hang on, madam," he whispered, though he doubted she could hear him. "Just hang on." The journey seemed interminable, the woman's limp form growing heavier with each passing mile. Isaac's cabin finally came into view as twilight descended, a modest structure of rough-hewn logs that sat nestled against a backdrop of juniper trees, with a small corral for his horses and a chicken coop off to one side. It wasn't much, but it offered shelter and safety. He dismounted carefully, lifting the woman down before carrying her inside. The cabin's interior was sparse but clean: a table and 2 chairs, a cast-iron stove in one corner, a narrow bed against the far wall, and a trunk containing his few possessions. Isaac laid her on the bed, then hastened to light the lantern hanging from a ceiling beam. In the warm glow, he could better assess her condition. Her breathing was shallow, her skin hot to the touch. Fever. He dampened a cloth with water from the bucket near the stove and placed it on her forehead, then gently worked off her boots and covered her with his worn quilt. "What happened to you?" he murmured, though no answer came. Isaac spent the night in a chair beside the bed, rising frequently to replace the cloth on her forehead and coax small sips of water between her parched lips. By dawn, her fever had broken, but she remained unconscious, her body clearly exhausted beyond measure. It was mid-morning when she finally stirred. Isaac was preparing a simple breakfast of cornmeal mush when he heard a soft moan from the bed. He turned to find her struggling to sit up, confusion and fear evident in her wide-eyed gaze. "Where am I?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Isaac approached slowly, not wanting to frighten her further. "You're safe," he said. "I found you passed out beside the trail yesterday evening. Brought you to my cabin." He kept his distance, remaining at the foot of the bed. "Name's Isaac Xavier. I run cattle about 5 miles east of Tucson." She clutched the quilt tighter, eyes darting around the unfamiliar surroundings. I'm Nora. Nora Evans." "Miss Evans," Isaac acknowledged with a slight nod. "You were in a bad way when I found you. Mind telling me how you came to be alone in the desert?" Nora's eyes clouded with what looked like a mixture of grief and fear. "The stagecoach was robbed," she explained hesitantly. 2 days ago, I think. The driver and the guard were shot. The other passengers, an elderly couple, were taken hostage." She swallowed hard. "They told me to run. I've been walking since then." Isaac's jaw tightened. The Alvarez gang had been terrorizing the territory for months, targeting stagecoaches and homesteads alike. "You're lucky to be alive," he said simply. "The others?" she asked, hope flickering briefly in her eyes. Isaac shook his head grimly. "Can't say. But the Alvarez boys don't usually leave witnesses." He immediately regretted his bluntness when he saw her face crumple. "I'm sorry," he added awkwardly. Nora nodded, blinking back tears. "Thank you for saving me, Mr. Xavier." "Isaac," he corrected. "And you need to rest. I'll ride into town later, let the sheriff know what happened. See about getting word to your folks." A shadow crossed her face. "I don't have any folks. Not anymore. I was heading to San Francisco to stay with my aunt." Isaac nodded, unsure what else to say. He returned to the stove, spooning the cornmeal into a wooden bowl. "Think you can eat something?" "Not much, but it'll help your strength." She accepted the bowl with trembling hands, taking small, careful bites. Isaac busied himself outside, tending to his horses and chickens, giving her time to collect herself. When he returned, she was asleep again, the empty bowl on the small table beside the bed. For 3 days, Nora drifted in and out of consciousness, her body recovering from dehydration and exposure. Isaac slept on a pallet of blankets near the stove, rode into Tucson to inform Sheriff Miller about the stagecoach robbery, and continued his daily chores while his unexpected guest recuperated. On the morning of the 4th day, Isaac returned from checking his cattle to find Nora sitting at the table, her hair neatly braided, wearing one of his clean shirts with her skirt. The garment swallowed her slender frame, but she'd rolled up the sleeves and buttoned it modestly. "Hope you don't mind," she said, gesturing to the shirt. "Mine was beyond salvaging." Isaac removed his hat, suddenly conscious of his dust-covered appearance. "Not at all." He cleared his throat. "You're looking better." "I feel better," she admitted. "And I've imposed on your hospitality long enough. I should continue to San Francisco as soon as possible." "The next stage won't come through for at least a week," Isaac informed her. "And it's not safe for you to travel alone, especially with the Alvarez gang still out there." Nora's hands twisted nervously in her lap. "I don't have much money," she confessed. "Most of it was in my trunk, which was on the stagecoach." Isaac waved away her concern. "You're welcome to stay until the stage comes through. I don't have much, but what I have, I'm willing to share." Gratitude shone in her eyes. "I won't be a burden. I can cook, clean, mend whatever needs doing." "That's not necessary, please," she interrupted. "I need to do something to repay your kindness." Isaac recognized the pride in her voice and nodded. "All right then." Over the following days, a routine developed. Isaac tended to his ranch work while Nora took charge of the cabin. She proved to be an excellent cook, transforming his simple provisions into meals that reminded him of home. In the evenings, they'd sit by the fire, Nora mending clothes or reading from one of the few books Isaac owned, while he whittled or cleaned his guns. Gradually, they shared pieces of their stories. Isaac spoke of growing up in Missouri, his service in the Union Army during the Civil War, and his decision to head west afterward, seeking a fresh start away from painful memories. Nora revealed that she'd been a schoolteacher in Ohio before her parents died of influenza the previous winter, leaving her alone with mounting debts and few options. "My aunt wrote offering me a home," she explained one evening as they sat outside, watching the sunset paint the desert in hues of gold and crimson. "She and my uncle own a dress shop in San Francisco. They never had children of their own." "Sounds like a good opportunity," Isaac commented, secretly disliking the thought of her leaving. "It is," Nora agreed, though her tone lacked enthusiasm. "I should be grateful." A comfortable silence fell between them as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Isaac stole a glance at her profile, illuminated by the soft glow from the cabin window. Something about her presence had awakened feelings he'd thought long buried, a yearning for companionship, for something beyond the solitary existence he'd carved out for himself. "I received a letter from Sheriff Miller today," he said eventually. "They found the stagecoach, abandoned about 20 miles south. The driver and guard were dead, as expected, but there was no sign of the elderly couple or your trunk." Nora's shoulders slumped. "So they're likely dead too. Or being held for ransom," Isaac suggested, though he knew it was a slim hope. "Either way, the sheriffs organized a posse. They're tracking the gang as we speak." "I hope they find them," Nora said softly. The following morning, Isaac was preparing to ride out to the north pasture when a sharp cry from inside the cabin brought him running. He found Nora staring at the open window, her face pale. "Someone was watching us," she whispered. "A man. I saw his face at the window, just for a moment." Isaac's hand went to his revolver. "Stay here," he ordered, stepping outside. He circled the cabin cautiously, eyes scanning the surrounding terrain. Near the edge of the property, he found fresh hoof prints, at least 2 horses, maybe 3. They led away toward the mountains to the south. When he returned, Nora was sitting at the table, hands clasped tightly together. "Did you see anyone?" "No, but someone was definitely here," Isaac confirmed. "Likely scouts for the Alvarez gang. They often send men ahead to find isolated homesteads to raid." Fear flickered across Nora's features. "Because of me? Do they know I survived the stagecoach robbery?" "Could be coincidence," Isaac said, though he didn't believe it. "Either way, we need to be prepared." That afternoon, Isaac showed Nora how to handle his spare revolver, a Colt Navy he'd carried during the war. "Keep this with you," he instructed, watching as she awkwardly held the weapon. "Just point and squeeze the trigger." "It's already loaded." Nora nodded, her expression determined despite her obvious discomfort with the firearm. "I've never shot a gun before," she admitted. "Let's hope you won't need to," Isaac replied grimly. For the next 2 days, they maintained a vigilant watch. Isaac kept his rifle close at hand and made sure Nora was never alone outside the cabin. At night, he slept lightly, ears attuned to any unusual sound. The tension wore on them both, the easy camaraderie of previous days replaced by anxiety and forced conversation. On the 3rd night, Isaac awoke to the soft nickering of his horses. He rose silently, grabbing his rifle as he moved to the window. The moon was full, casting silver light across the yard and illuminating 3 mounted figures approaching from the south. "Nora," he whispered urgently. "Wake up." She stirred immediately, sitting up in the bed. "They're here." 3 riders, Isaac confirmed, checking his rifle. "Get dressed quick and stay away from the windows." While Nora hurriedly donned her clothes, Isaac positioned himself by the door. "When I engage them, I want you to slip out the back and head for the creek bed. Follow it north until you reach the Miller homestead, about 2 miles. Tell them to send for the sheriff." "I'm not leaving you here alone," Nora protested, the Colt Navy clutched in her trembling hand. "This isn't a discussion," Isaac said firmly. "They're after you. If they get us both, there's no one to bring help." Before she could argue further, a voice called out from the darkness. "Xavier, we know you're in there. Send out the woman, and we'll let you live." Isaac's jaw tightened. "Rafael Alvarez," he muttered, eldest of the brothers. "What do we do?" Nora whispered, fear evident in her voice. "Same plan," Isaac insisted. "When the shooting starts, you run." He moved to the window, keeping to the side. "You'll get no one, Alvarez," he shouted. "Ride on before I put a bullet in you." Harsh laughter answered him. "1 man against 3? Those are poor odds, amigo. Better than yours if the sheriff's posse finds you here." Isaac retorted. "The sheriff and his men are chasing shadows 20 miles west," came the confident reply. "No one's coming to help you. Last chance, the woman, or we burn you out." Isaac glanced at Nora, who had moved to his side. "When I fire the first shot, go out the back window and run for the creek," he whispered. "Don't look back." Nora's eyes were wide with fear, but she nodded resolutely. Isaac took a deep breath, then fired through the window at the mounted figures. A cry of pain told him he'd struck one of them. Immediately, gunfire erupted as the outlaws returned fire, bullets splintering the wooden walls of the cabin. "Now," Isaac urged, pushing Nora toward the back of the cabin. She hesitated just long enough to press a quick, desperate kiss to his cheek. "Be careful," she whispered before moving toward the window. Isaac returned to the front, firing methodically at the flashes of gunfire outside. He heard the soft thud of Nora dropping from the back window, followed by the rustle of her footsteps receding into the night. Relief surged through him. At least she had a chance now. The gunfight continued for several minutes, with Isaac changing positions regularly to confuse his attackers. A bullet grazed his arm, leaving a burning furrow across his bicep, but he ignored the pain. From the shouts outside, he determined that one of the Alvarez brothers was seriously wounded, the other 2 becoming increasingly desperate. Then, ominously, the gunfire ceased. In the sudden silence, Isaac strained to hear any movement. A flicker of orange light caught his attention. Fire. They were attempting to burn him out, just as promised. Isaac cursed under his breath, assessing his options. The flames were spreading quickly along the front of the cabin, fed by the dry timber. Smoke began to fill the interior, stinging his eyes and making it difficult to breathe. He had moments, not minutes, to decide. Gathering his ammunition and canteen, Isaac moved to the back window. He would circle around, try to catch the outlaws by surprise. As he dropped to the ground outside, a sharp pain exploded in his left leg. He fell heavily, the impact knocking his rifle from his grasp. "Thought you might try something like that," said Rafael Alvarez, stepping from the shadows, pistol aimed at Isaac's chest. The outlaw was a tall man with a pockmarked face partially hidden by a thick black beard. "Where's the woman?" "Gone." Isaac spat, hand inching toward the revolver at his hip. "Too far for you to catch now." Alvarez's eyes narrowed. "Hernando." "Manuel," he called to his companions. "Search the area. The woman can't have gotten far." As the other two men moved off, Rafael kept his gun trained on Isaac. "You should have minded your own business, cowboy." "Helping someone in need is my business," Isaac retorted, wincing as he shifted his wounded leg. Rafael sneered. "Noble sentiments won't save you or her. When my brothers find her." His words were cut short by the crack of a gunshot. Rafael jerked, a look of surprise crossing his face as a dark stain spread across his chest. He toppled forward, revealing Nora standing several yards behind him, the Colt Navy still raised in her shaking hands. "Nora!" Isaac exclaimed, shock and relief mingling in his voice. "I told you to run. I couldn't leave you," she said, rushing to his side. "You're hurt." "It's just a graze," he assured her, struggling to his feet with her assistance. "But we need to move. The other two will have heard the shot." Together they limped toward the corral where Isaac's horses were penned, the burning cabin illuminating their path with eerie orange light. They had just reached the fence when shouts announced the return of the remaining Alvarez brothers. "Take Rusty and go," Isaac urged, passing Nora the reins of his chestnut stallion. "I'll hold them off." "Not without you," she insisted, her voice steadier than before. "We ride together or not at all." Gunfire erupted behind them, bullets kicking up dust at their feet. Isaac realized there was no time for argument. He boosted Nora onto Rusty's back, then swung up behind her despite the searing pain in his leg. Digging his heels into the horse's flanks, he urged the animal forward just as flames engulfed the cabin's roof. They rode hard through the night, following the creek bed northward. Behind them, the occasional shot rang out as the Alvarez brothers pursued them, but the distance gradually increased. By dawn, they'd reached the Miller homestead, where they raised the alarm. Mr. Miller dispatched his oldest son to alert the sheriff in Tucson, while Mrs. Miller tended to Isaac's wounds. "You're lucky," the older woman commented as she cleaned the bullet graze on his leg. "Few inches to the right, and you'd have lost the leg." Isaac's gaze sought Nora, who was sitting nearby, exhaustion evident in her pale face. "I am lucky," he agreed softly. Sheriff Miller and 6 deputies arrived by mid-afternoon. After hearing their account of the night's events, the lawmen set out to track the remaining Alvarez brothers. Isaac and Nora remained with the Millers, recovering from their ordeal. "The stage to San Francisco passes through tomorrow," Mrs. Miller informed Nora as they shared supper that evening. "Sheriff said he'd arrange passage for you. No charge, considering what you've been through." Nora's eyes flicked to Isaac before she nodded. "That's very kind. Thank you." Later, as the household settled for the night, Isaac found Nora sitting alone on the porch, gazing at the stars. He lowered himself carefully beside her, mindful of his bandaged leg. "You should be resting," she admonished gently. "Couldn't sleep," he admitted. "Too much on my mind." They sat in silence for several moments, the chirping of crickets the only sound in the still night air. "You saved my life," Isaac said finally. "Twice now. Once when you came back instead of running, and once when you shot Rafael Alvarez." Nora shook her head. "You saved mine first." "I simply returned the favor." "Is that all it was?" Isaac asked, his voice low. "A debt repaid?" She turned to look at him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "No," she whispered. "That's not all it was." Isaac reached for her hand, his calloused fingers entwining with hers. "Then don't go to San Francisco," he said. Stay here. With me. Surprise registered on her face. Isaac, we barely know each other. I know enough, he countered. I know you're brave and kind. I know you make my cabin feel like a home for the first time since I built it. I know that the thought of you leaving tomorrow makes me feel hollow inside. He paused, searching for words. I'm not a man given to fancy talk, Nora. But these past days with you, they've made me want things I stopped hoping for long ago. Nora's free hand came up to touch his cheek, her fingers cool against his skin. I felt it too, she confessed. This connection between us. But everything's happened so fast, the robbery, you finding me, the attack. How do we know what's real and what's just gratitude or relief at being alive? We don't, Isaac acknowledged. Not for certain. But I'm willing to take that chance if you are. She was quiet for a long moment, her eyes searching his. My aunt is expecting me, she said finally. I should at least let her know I'm safe and that my plans have changed. Hope surged in Isaac's chest. Does that mean you'll stay? A smile, the first genuine one he'd seen since the attack, curved Nora's lips. It means I'd like to see where this path leads us, she said. If you're willing to be patient while we find out. Patience I've got plenty of, Isaac replied, his own smile matching hers. It's hope I've been short on, until now. The next morning, Nora sent a telegram to her aunt in San Francisco, explaining her survival of the stagecoach robbery and her decision to remain in Arizona territory, at least for the time being. While she didn't explicitly mention Isaac, the warm glow in her cheeks as she handed over the message spoke volumes. Sheriff Miller returned that afternoon with news that the remaining Alvarez brothers had been captured trying to cross into Mexico. The elderly couple from the stagecoach had been found alive, though badly treated, at the outlaws' hideout in the mountains. Your trunk was there too, Miss Evans, the sheriff informed her. Appears they hadn't gotten around to rifling through it yet. It'll be returned to you once we've finished cataloging the stolen goods. Relief washed over Nora's face. Thank you, Sheriff. That's wonderful news. 3 days later, when Isaac's leg was healing well enough for travel, they returned to what remained of his cabin. The fire had consumed most of the structure, leaving only charred timbers and the stone chimney standing. Everything's gone, Nora said softly, surveying the devastation. Isaac shook his head. Not everything. The land's still here. So are the cattle and horses. He glanced at her. And you're here. But where will you live? We'll rebuild, he said simply. Better than before. And they did. With help from neighboring ranchers and supplies from Tucson, a new cabin rose from the ashes of the old one, larger, with a proper bedroom and a kitchen Nora pronounced suitable for proper cooking. They added a small garden and fruit trees, investments in a future they were beginning to imagine together. As summer gave way to fall, their relationship deepened, the initial spark of attraction maturing into something more profound. Nora found purpose teaching the children of nearby homesteaders, while Isaac's cattle business prospered under their combined efforts. On Christmas Eve, 6 months after their first encounter on that dusty road, Isaac presented Nora with a small wooden box containing a simple gold band. It's not fancy, he apologized as she stared at the ring. Town jeweler didn't have much selection. It's perfect, Nora whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. Does that mean yes? Isaac asked, his usually confident voice tinged with uncertainty. In answer, Nora threw her arms around his neck, pressing her lips to his in a kiss that conveyed everything words could not. They were married in Tucson on New Year's Day, 1875, a small ceremony attended by the friends they'd made since that fateful summer day. Sheriff Miller gave the bride away. Mrs. Miller wept joyfully, and the town turned out to wish them, while the schoolteacher and the cowboy who'd found love in the most unexpected circumstances. As they rode back to their ranch that evening, the setting sun painting the desert in familiar hues of gold and crimson, Nora leaned back against her husband's chest, his arms secure around her. Happy? Isaac asked, his breath warm against her ear. Completely, she assured him, thinking of how far they'd come since that moment when she'd collapsed beside the road and a kind-hearted cowboy had lifted her gently, saying words she'd never forget. I've got you. I still do, you know, Isaac murmured, as if reading her thoughts. And I always will. I know, Nora replied, turning to meet his gaze. And I've got you too. Spring brought new beginnings to the Xavier Ranch. The garden Nora had planted flourished under her care, providing fresh vegetables for their table. Isaac's cattle herd increased with a successful calving season, and their modest homestead began to show signs of prosperity. A new barn, additional fencing, and even a piano Isaac had surprised Nora with on her birthday. "I don't know how to play," she protested when the instrument arrived from Tucson. "You'll learn," Isaac had replied confidently. "And someday, our children will learn too." The mention of children had brought a blush to Nora's cheeks, for by then, she suspected she might be carrying their first child. Her suspicions were confirmed by the town doctor in May, news that had Isaac whooping with joy and immediately setting to work on a cradle. Their son, James Thomas Xavier, was born on a crisp November morning in 1875. He had his father's strong jawline and his mother's honey-colored eyes, a perfect blend of them both. Isaac, who had faced gun-wielding outlaws without flinching, found himself terrified of the tiny infant. "He's so small," he whispered, hesitantly accepting the bundled baby from Nora. "What if I hurt him?" "You won't," Nora assured him, watching with tender amusement as her husband cradled their son with the same gentle care he'd shown her that first day. "You're a natural." Little James Jamie, as they came to call him, thrived under his parents' devoted attention. By his first birthday, he was toddling around the cabin, his infectious laughter bringing new joy to their lives. As the family grew, so did their connection to the community. Isaac served on the Territorial Cattle Commission, while Nora continued teaching and helped establish Tucson's first lending library. Their ranch became known as a place of hospitality, their Sunday dinners drawing neighbors from miles around. In the spring of 1877, Nora received a letter from her aunt in San Francisco, announcing her intention to visit. After all, the older woman wrote, "I must meet this cowboy who stole my niece's heart, and the grandson I've heard so much about." "Are you nervous?" Isaac asked, noticing Nora's thoughtful expression as she folded the letter. "A little," she admitted. "Aunt Catherine can be rather formidable, and I haven't seen her since I was 16. "She'll love Jamie," Isaac predicted, watching their son stack wooden blocks on the cabin floor. "Everyone does." Nora laughed, leaning into her husband's embrace. "That's true enough." Nora Evans arrived in June, a dignified woman in her 60s with silver-streaked dark hair and the same honey-colored eyes as Nora. Her initial reserve melted quickly in the face of Jamie's cherubic smiles and Isaac's straightforward charm. "I understand now why you didn't continue to San Francisco," she told Nora as they sat on the porch one evening, watching Isaac teach Jamie to feed the chickens. "You've built something special here. I never imagined this life for myself," Nora confessed. "But now I can't imagine any other." Catherine stayed for a month, her departure sweetened by news that Nora was expecting their second child. "I'll be back when the baby comes," she promised. "Someone needs to keep this cowboy of yours from pacing holes in the floorboards like he did with Jamie." Isaac laughed, not bothering to deny it. "You're always welcome, Catherine," he said sincerely. Their daughter, Elizabeth Catherine Xavier, arrived in January 1878, a tiny, spirited girl with her father's dark hair and determined nature. Jamie, now 2, regarded his sister with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. "Baby," he declared, peering into the cradle where she slept. "That's right," Nora confirmed, kneeling beside him. "Your sister, Eliza." "Mine?" Jamie asked, his small brow furrowed. "Yours to help protect and love," Isaac explained, ruffling his son's hair. "That's what big brothers do." As promised, Catherine returned for Eliza's birth, staying through the winter to help with the children. When she departed in spring, it was with reluctance. "San Francisco seems terribly dull compared to your life here," she remarked. "You could stay," Nora suggested, "or visit more often." Catherine's eyes brightened. "Perhaps I will." The years passed, marked by the changing seasons and the milestones of their growing family. Jamie started school, showing a quick mind and his mother's love of books. Eliza grew into a spirited child who preferred helping her father with the horses to learning needlework, much to Catherine's dismay during her increasingly frequent visits. In 1880, Nora gave birth to twins Robert and Rose, completing their family. The cabin, expanded twice already, now bustled with activity from dawn till dusk. Isaac, whose own childhood had been marked by loss and hardship, marveled at the fullness of his life. Did you ever imagine this? He asked Nora one night as they sat on the porch, watching the stars emerge while the children slept inside. For children, you mean? She teased. All of it, Isaac clarified, his hand finding hers in the darkness. This life we've built. Nora was quiet for a moment, considering. No, she admitted finally. When I was traveling west, alone and afraid after my parents died, I thought I was heading toward a life of quiet obligation with my aunt. I never dreamed that you'd collapse beside a road and be rescued by a love-struck cowboy, Isaac suggested with a smile. Love-struck, were you? Nora laughed. Even then. The moment I saw you, Isaac confirmed, though I was too stubborn to admit it right away. Nora leaned her head against his shoulder. I'm glad you found me that day. So am I, Isaac replied, pressing a kiss to her hair. So am I. In 1884, 10 years after their first meeting, Isaac and Nora Xavier stood on the porch of their ranch house, no longer a simple cabin, but a sprawling structure befitting a prosperous cattle operation. Their children played in the yard. Jamie, nearly 9, and already showing his father's talent with horses. Eliza, 6, directing her younger siblings in some elaborate game. And the twins, Robert and Rose, for years old and inseparable. Look at what we've created, Nora marveled, leaning into her husband's embrace. All because you happened to ride down that particular road on that particular day. Providence, Isaac suggested, his arms tightening around her. Or fate. Either way, Nora replied, turning to face him. I'm thankful every day for the moment you lifted me up and said, I've got you. And I always will, Isaac promised, bending to kiss her as the Arizona sunset painted the sky in brilliant hues, a fitting backdrop to a love story that had begun in desperation but blossomed into something enduring and beautiful, a testament to the unexpected gifts that sometimes appear on the dusty roads of life. As the years continued to pass, the Xavier Ranch grew into one of the most respected in the territory. Isaac's honest business practices and innovative ranching methods earned him the admiration of his peers, while Nora's contributions to education in the region garnered recognition from territorial officials. Their children flourished in the loving, stable environment their parents had created. Jamie, following in his father's footsteps, developed a keen understanding of cattle and land management. Eliza, combining her mother's intellect with her father's practicality, showed promise as a natural leader. The twins, Robert and Rose, while still young, already displayed their own unique talents, Robert with numbers, and Rose with an artistic eye that captured the beauty of their desert home. In 1889, Arizona was pushing hard for statehood, and Isaac, now a respected voice in territorial affairs, found himself increasingly involved in the political discussions. They want me to serve as a delegate to the Constitutional Convention, he told Nora one evening, after the children had gone to bed. You should do it, she encouraged. You understand what's at stake for ranchers and farmers better than most politicians. Isaac smiled at her confidence in him. It would mean time away from home, from you and the children. We'll manage, Nora assured him. This is important for Arizona's future, for our children's future. With Nora's blessing, Isaac accepted the position. For several months, he traveled between their ranch and Phoenix, where the convention was being held. During his absences, Nora managed the ranch operations with Jamie's help, writing detailed letters to keep Isaac informed of both business and family matters. When Isaac returned home after the successful conclusion of the convention, he brought news that statehood, while still not imminent, was moving closer to reality. They're saying it could happen within the next 5 to 10 years, he reported. Then our children will grow up in the state of Arizona, not just the territory, Nora mused. That's something to look forward to. As their family matured, the Xavier home continued to be a gathering place for the community. Holidays were celebrated with abundant feasts that brought together neighbors from miles around. Nora's Aunt Catherine, who had eventually sold her San Francisco shop to split her time between California and Arizona, became a beloved fixture at these gatherings, her sophisticated wit and generous nature making her a favorite with the Xavier children and their friends. In 1893, Jamie, now 17, announced his intention to attend college in California. I want to study modern agricultural methods, he explained to his parents. Bring back new ideas to improve the ranch. While Isaac was initially reluctant to see his son leave, Nora reminded him of the importance of education. "He'll come back to us," she assured her husband. "This is his home, his heritage." The day they put Jamie on the westbound train was difficult for the entire family. Eliza, 15 and idolizing her older brother, was particularly distraught. "Who's going to teach me to break the new horses?" she demanded, fighting back tears. "I reckon that'll be my job now," Isaac told her, an arm around her shoulders. "And you can write to your brother about your progress." Letters from Jamie arrived regularly, filled with descriptions of his studies and the wonders of San Francisco. "Aunt Catherine showed me all around the city," he wrote. "But none of it compares to the view from our front porch at sunset." His absence created a shift in the family dynamic. Eliza stepped into her brother's role as Isaac's primary helper with the ranch work, while the twins, now 13, took on more responsibilities around the home. Nora, watching her children mature, felt a bittersweet pride in their growing independence. "They're becoming their own people," she remarked to Isaac one evening as they watched Eliza confidently leading a spirited young mare around the corral. "They had good teachers," Isaac replied, his hand finding hers as it had countless times over their years together. When Jamie returned after completing his studies, he brought with him not only new ideas for the ranch, but also a young woman, Clara Mitchell, the daughter of a San Francisco banker, who had captured his heart. "I'd like your blessing to ask for her hand," he told his parents privately. Isaac and Nora welcomed Clara warmly, seeing in her the same strength of character and kind heart they'd valued in each other. "You have our blessing," Isaac told his son, "and our happiness." Jamie and Clara were married at the ranch in the spring of 1897, their wedding celebration bringing together friends and family from near and far. As Nora watched her firstborn pledge his life to his bride, she couldn't help but reflect on her own journey to this moment. "What are you thinking about?" Isaac asked as they danced under the stars that night, the sounds of laughter and music filling the air around them. "About how differently my life might have turned out if you hadn't found me that day," Nora replied. "If I'd made it to San Francisco as planned." Isaac's arms tightened around her. "I can't imagine my life without you in it," he said simply. "Without the family we've created together." "Nor can I," Nora agreed, resting her head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "It's been a blessed journey, hasn't it? And it's far from over," Isaac reminded her. "We've still got those two to see married off," he added, nodding toward where the twins were attempting to teach some of the younger guests a complicated dance step. Nora laughed. "And grandchildren to spoil," she added, her eyes moving to Jamie and his new bride, who were sharing a quiet moment at the edge of the festivities. The turn of the century brought new changes and challenges. In February 1900, Arizona's bid for statehood was again delayed by Congress, a disappointment to those who had worked so hard for recognition. "Politics," Isaac muttered disgustedly when he read the news. "They'll come around eventually." On a more personal level, the Xavier family celebrated Eliza's engagement to Thomas Blackburn, a young rancher from a neighboring property. "I'll still help with the ranch," she assured her father. "Tom understands how important it is to me." "Your happiness is what's important to me," Isaac told her, though the prospect of another child leaving home weighed on his heart. The twins, meanwhile, were charting their own paths. Robert, with his head for numbers, had taken over the financial management of the ranch, implementing modern bookkeeping practices that increased their efficiency. Rose, whose artistic talents had blossomed, was gaining recognition for her paintings of Western landscapes, with several pieces being displayed in Tucson galleries. In the summer of 1901, Nora received word that her Aunt Catherine had passed away peacefully in her sleep while visiting friends in San Francisco. "She left everything to us," Nora told Isaac after the funeral. "Her house, her savings. She said in her will that we gave her a second family when she needed it most. She gave us much more than we ever gave her." Isaac reflected, remembering the elderly woman's sharp wit and loving presence in their lives. Catherine's passing prompted reflections on mortality and legacy. Isaac, now in his 50s, began to consider the future of the ranch. "I want to make sure it's secure for the next generation," he told Nora as they discussed the distribution of Catherine's inheritance. "For Jamie and Clara's children, and whoever else comes along." Nora, ever practical, suggested establishing a formal family trust. That way, the ranch stays intact, regardless of what happens to any one of us. With Robert's assistance and the advice of a trusted lawyer in Tucson, they created a structure that would preserve their life's work for their descendants. It feels good, Isaac acknowledged after the papers were signed, knowing that what we built will continue. In February 1912, Arizona finally achieved statehood, becoming the 48th state in the Union. The Xavier family celebrated along with their neighbors, the American flag with its newly added star flying proudly over the ranch house. Took them long enough, Isaac commented to Nora as they watched the fireworks display in Tucson that marked the occasion. Some things are worth waiting for, Nora replied, squeezing his hand. By then, their family had expanded to include 5 grandchildren: Jamie and Clara's 3 children and Eliza and Tom's twins. The ranch house, once again expanded to accommodate family gatherings, rang with the laughter of a new generation. Robert, though now in his 30s, showed no inclination toward marriage, preferring to focus on his work managing the ranch's business affairs. Not everyone is meant for matrimony, he told his mother when she gently inquired about his future plans. I'm happy with my books and the family I already have. Rose, on the other hand, had married a professor from the University of Arizona and divided her time between Tucson, where her husband taught, and the ranch, which continued to inspire her acclaimed paintings. In the summer of 1914, as news of war in Europe reached even their remote corner of Arizona, Isaac and Nora celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary. Their children organized a surprise party that brought together friends and family from across their decades together. 40 years, Isaac marveled as they greeted their guests. Seems like yesterday and forever all at once. Nora, her dark hair now streaked with silver, but her honey-colored eyes as warm as ever, smiled up at him. The best 40 years I could have imagined. As the celebration continued around them, they found a quiet moment together on the porch where they'd spent countless evenings throughout their marriage. Any regrets? Isaac asked, his hand finding hers with the same certainty as always. Nora considered the question seriously. Only that we can't have 40 more, she answered finally. Isaac's laugh, still strong despite his advancing years, rang out in the desert night. Always wanting more, he teased. That's my Nora. Can you blame me? She returned. Look at what we've created together, this ranch, our children, our place in this community. It's been a beautiful life, Isaac. And it still is, he reminded her, drawing her close. Every day with you is a gift I never expected to receive when I rode down that dusty road and found a collapsed woman in need of help. The best wrong turn I ever took, Nora murmured, resting her head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart, leading me right where I was meant to be. As the stars appeared overhead, much as they had on countless nights throughout their years together, Isaac and Nora Xavier stood wrapped in each other's arms, surrounded by the legacy of their love, a thriving ranch, a close-knit family, and a bond that had only strengthened with the passage of time. I've got you, Isaac whispered, the words as meaningful now as they had been on that fateful day 40 years before. Always, Nora replied, her voice soft but certain. And I've got you too. And in that moment, as in all the moments that had come before and all those yet to come, they knew it was enough, more than enough. It was everything.